Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean.
EAGLES. Eagles.
Welcome into the Malamut Law pregame show here from Ocean Casino's Gallery Bar Book and Games in Atlantic City. Marc Farzetta along with you. We'll introduce the panel in a second, but welcome into super wild card round of the NFL playoffs, where your Philadelphia Eagles coming into the playoffs, of course, riding not necessarily a high, to say the absolute least, losing 5 of 6, but they go into the playoffs at 11-6 on the season to face the 9-8 Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And if I told you in Week 3 that these two teams are going to be facing each other in the wild card round of the playoffs, I'm sure you'd be disappointed that the Eagles were only limping into the playoffs in the wild card and not a number 1 seed in the NFC. But these two teams couldn't be more different than they were in that Week 3 matchup. So to break it all down and talk about Eagles and Bucs kicking it off in the wild card round, Marc Farzetta. We have Bill Colarulo. We have Seth Joyner, of course, Eagles Hall of Famer, and Adam Malamut himself. I'm going to start it off with this, and I know it's something that might get the good vibes going in a game that not a lot of people are expecting the Eagles to play particularly well in. However, how about them Cowboys? And does the way the Cowboys play, Bill, that is add maybe to any of your optimism going into tonight's game?
It sure does, Farzy. I mean, number one, it made my Sunday, that was for sure. But this Eagles team has been saying all week that the playoffs are a different season, that we are 0-0. And you look at what happened not only yesterday, but on Saturday. The Houston Texans dominated the number 1 defense in the NFL against the Cleveland Browns. The Dallas Cowboys, who have won 16 straight games at home, got dominated by a 7th seed Green Bay Packers. So it is officially a new season, and I got some hope today, Farzy.
That's good. I think the good vibes are going based on what went down in yesterday's games, of course. But the one thing that has been kicked around a lot ever since the season ended, and really even before that, Seth, was all about this proverbial playoff switch. Eagles, as I pointed out already, as we all know by now, lost 5 of 6, limped into the playoffs, unfortunately, had the number 1 overall seed in their grasp, and then absolutely lost it to end the season. Do you believe, Seth, in the proverbial playoff switch?
I don't. I think that, at certain points in the year, you kind of are who you are. But I got a different feeling about this. Even in my show last week, I picked the Eagles to lose, and I've kind of switched up a little bit because somewhere deep down inside, I feel like if there's any fight in them whatsoever, it'll come out tonight. If it doesn't come out tonight, then I'm extremely worried about not only this team, but this coaching staff moving forward.
All right, well, let's stay on that note then for a second then, because then the obvious follow-up question to that is Nick Sirianni. Do you believe he truly is coaching for his job tonight?
Well, I think the outcome of the game will determine whether he's actually coaching for his job or not. I think if they get blown out, if they get beat up the way they got beat up against the Giants last week, that there are some conversations that Jeffrey Lurie and Howard Roseman have to have about whether they move on or what their choice is going to be as far as, how they're going to deal with the coaching staff moving forward. I think you have to have that conversation. Now, if they win the game, that conversation changes a little bit. If they, lose the game by a small margin, I think that changes a little bit, but the conversation still happens. But if they just come out here and play the way that they played the last 2 weeks, they've got to have some serious conversations. You guys know, I told you before, I'm not one of those people that's huge on talking about whether guys should or shouldn't lose their jobs, but I think you have to evaluate it after the monumental collapse from 10-1, going 1-5 over the last 6 weeks and then turning around in the playoffs and get your doors blown off. You got to have some serious reservations about where the team is going and how they're being led where they're going.
Absolutely. Adam, I'll lay it out like this. I think that Nick Sirianni gets canned if this team goes out and absolutely lays an egg tonight. If he tried to get him up for Week 18 against the Giants and that was an epic fail, And you try to do the same type of thing against the Buccaneers here in the wild card round of the playoffs. Given the way the season ended, if they get annihilated, I think he's fired. If it's a close one, then I think they just let go of the coordinators. Maybe they decide to hold on to Matt Patricia and let him have a full year in the offseason, but Brian Johnson's probably out. They win, and then we reevaluate for next week. But where are you at as far as whether or not Nick Sirianni is on that proverbial hot seat? And before you answer that, I'm sorry, I wanted to mention Jay Glazer earlier today, a report came out from him saying that he is not on the hot seat, but of course the game has to be played tonight. Where are you at as far as Nick Sirianni and that hot seat goes?
Did you just cite Jay Glazer or Wikipedia?
Jay Glazer, sir.
All right. So you guys know that I'm a bit of a history buff. I really enjoy history and I enjoy quotes. And I think it was Alexander Hamilton that said the Dallas Cowboys suck. So if we can move back to the Eagles now, I think that, look, the guy's lost the team. I think he's on the hot seat. I don't know if he loses his job, but I think he loses a lot of control. And I think that what happens today will dictate who's going to come back next year, who's going to do the play calling, what level of influence he has on who his assistants will be. And that's important. As a head coach, you want the ability to control your destiny. And if you have other people coming in who you don't necessarily have the choice of, then you're really on the hot seat. So I think either way, things are going to change. The question is how much. But I think we're going to win tonight, so we don't have to worry about that tonight.
All right, so there's some optimism. Now, of course, you guys can comment on the show here throughout the broadcast and let us know exactly where you're at as far as whether or not this Eagles team is going to win this game and your confidence level, of course, going into tonight. But let's start it out with this. If the Eagles, Seth, are going to win this game tonight, this is one of those games where if you look at the numbers, it lends itself to the Eagles' favor, where they get to do the thing they want to do anyway, which is throw the ball. They're taking on one of the worst pass defenses in the entire NFL, and what you're facing tonight against the Bucs. They're a very good run team as far as stopping the run, are the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Eighth best team in the NFL at stopping the run. How do the Eagles go about this game tonight? Do they tempt fate and run, or do they do the thing that they're going to be most comfortable doing anyway, or the thing they want to do the most, which is throw that football?
Well, they're different football teams, but if I take you all the way back to the Bucs game early in the season, Tampa Bay going into that game was also a highly ranked, defensive rush team against the run. And the Eagles ran the ball 41 times for 201 yards. So I get the sense that, you can kind of throw those numbers out the window. If the Eagles are smart, they're going to look back at that game and say, hey, we were able to run the football. And if we were able to run the football then, there's no reason why we shouldn't be able to run it then. This game. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be super run heavy, but at least you won't be in a situation where they're just going to come out and just be throwing the ball all over the map. Your number one wide receiver is down tonight. That tells me that Dallas Goedert has to be more of a focal point. We had a Quez Watkins, sighting last week, 93 yards receiving last week out of him. So maybe his confidence is rising. But in order for this offense to work efficiently, they've got to get to a point tonight where they're willing to take the underneath throws, the short to intermediate routes. And I was reading an article earlier today that talked about Jalen Hurts has been a little upset, with how the offense has been run because they want him to take shots down the field. And he wants to move the chains, according to this report. Now, I don't know how much truth there is to it, but when you look at his body language over the last 10 weeks, it's been like, okay, I'll throw the ball down the field if you want to. It's not really what I want to do, but I'm going to throw it, and if it doesn't work out, Nick, it's on you, And his body language has kind of spoken to that. The smart thing to do is when you're playing against really good defenses is just take what they give you, because this is a high blitz team, but they're also a team that likes to play zone. And you've got enough weapons to take advantage of the zone if you're willing to take advantage of the short to intermediate routes. When you get them in a position where you can take shots because you have the lead, then take the shots. And then lastly, the most important thing they've got to do is they've got to adjust their mindset and their philosophy as far as how the blitz is concerned, okay? Tampa Bay doesn't have great cornerbacks. They've got some good safeties, but they don't have great cornerbacks. And I think that, in situations where you see blitzes, you got to go max protection, okay? You got to bring the tight end back in. You got to have him help. You got to keep the back end. You got to have him help. You got to zone everything off and give Jalen an opportunity to hit some adjusted routes instead of taking shots down the field. Now, if they can do that, if they can adjust that mindset, then I think they've got a very good shot at winning this football game in a big way. But if you keep doing the things that you've been doing for 18 weeks and you can't bring yourself to see that the adjustment is necessary, then we're in for another long night and another week next week talking about what could have been, what should have been, and where this team is headed along with this coaching staff.
All right, let's keep it with that theme. So I think one of the big players in tonight's game, other than Jalen Hurts having a very efficient game, I think it has to be a guy like DeAndre Swift. And you talk about the game that they had in Week 3 against these Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They ran the ball 40 times. 10 of those were, of course, Jalen Hurts runs, not all designed. Some, of course, were scrambles. But a guy like DeAndre Swift had himself a night that night as they ran it for over 200 yards in Week 3. How vital, not just in the run game, but also the pass game, Bill, do you think a guy like DeAndre Swift could be tonight?
I think DeAndre Swift has to have a huge game on offense. Seth mentioned it. A.J. Brown's out, probably your best offensive player in A.J. Brown. I think you have to lean on the run early to set up the pass, and I really want to see them get the ball in their playmakers' hands. Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, and DeAndre Swift in space. So when they do throw the football, everything doesn't have to be down the field. Create plays to get the ball in your playmakers' hands in space so they can pick up that yards after catch. But we're spending a lot of time talking about the Eagles' running game. I think the most important thing is for us to stop the Tampa Bay Bucs running game. Bucs have a horrible rushing offense. They are the 32nd out of 32 NFL teams. They can't run the ball. Philadelphia Eagles, back in Week 3, held them to only 41 yards rushing. But you were talking about an Eagles defense back then that held everybody through the first 9 games under 100 yards with the exception of an overtime game against the Commanders, an average of 66 yards against. The last 8 games, every single opponent has rushed for over 100 yards. This defense needs to make sure that they turn the Tampa Bay Bucs offense into a one-dimensional offense. Take away the run early. Set up 3rd and long. Make sure that you don't put yourselves in bad spots because we know how good Mike Evans is. We know how good Chris Godwin is on the outside. You got to establish that you could stop the run, make them one-dimensional. I think that'll help that defense a lot.
All right, so, Adam, that scares the hell out of me because then you're throwing into a defense, unfortunately, that has not been so great also at stopping the pass game. So Baker Mayfield, move him off his spot. Now, people say, Baker Mayfield. I remind you, Drew Lock, okay? I remind you, Tyrod Taylor. I remember you little snippets of Tommy DeVito thrown into the mix here as well. When it comes to this defense being able to stop that offense for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who do you think needs to step up? And also, Reed Blankenship was trying to test out his groin on the field earlier in the game, or earlier in warm-ups. Stopped doing that after a short amount of time. We'll see what that leads to when inactives come out in just a couple of minutes here. But, Adam, looking at stopping that offense, what do you need to see from this defense tonight for the Eagles?
So it's interesting, right? They're talking about Avonte Maddox playing safety. And one of the things that really concerns me, and Bill hit on it, is I think that Mike Evans is one of the most talented receivers in the league still. The guy's got sure hands. He knows how to run a route. And I don't discount Baker Mayfield like a lot of other people do. I know he left the Browns. He had up and down seasons at the Browns. The guy's a talented guy. He was the #1 overall draft pick. He's a skilled athlete. He's a little more poised. He's a little bit more mature than he was before. You know, my concern is if you give him the time, those receivers are going to get separation on our defensive backfield. And if they get the separation on our defensive backfield, we're in trouble. If they beat us through our middle, through our linebackers, we're in trouble. You know, we haven't seen this Eagles defensive line be dominant, and I will tell you, I do not want Hassan Reddick dropping into coverage. Can we please let that guy rush the damn quarterback? He needs to stay on the field rushing the quarterback. If we get the pressure on, we're going to have a better shot at shutting down that time that he has to pass the ball. We've got these big guys up front, you know, Davis and Carter and, you know, Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham. Give those guys an opportunity to do their job. You're dropping a guy who's a premier pass rusher back into coverage. That defeats the purpose. So my key, let's get the pressure on him.
I love the pressure, obviously. Real quick, the inactives just come out. I just want to let people know. Reed Blankenship is out. A.J. Brown, as we knew. Sidney Brown, as we knew. Tanner McKee. Moro Jomo is also out. Rashad Penny, inactive again. Tyler Steen, inactive as well. Go ahead.
one of the things, that, I saw Sean Desai do before, he got demoted is Sean was trying to be a little more creative in what he was doing. Now, it's no secret that the Eagles need to be in their 5-man front to clog up the middle to be able to get the run under control. I submit to you, after Matt Patricia took over, they became a worse run defense team in the middle, because there are times where they're always playing this chess match where, first and second downs, you're trying to figure out, do you go, are they going to run or are they going to pass? So you go 4-man line. You go 4-man line, they turn around, they run the ball. You go 5-man line, they're more apt to throw the ball against that because you got one less guy. And what Sean Desai began to do is he started moving Zach Cunningham, shifting him late and moving Josh Sweat down into, you got to put him in position that when Baker Mayfield's going to throw the ball, listen, he only threw the ball 25 times in the first game. They ran it 17 times. He threw it 25 times. Mike Evans only had 60 yards receiving. Now, their chemistry has gotten much, much better, but the Eagles still have got to be cognizant about getting the run under control, because then that takes away all the play-action passes and allows them to do some different things on the back end and personnel-wise to be able to get the passing game under control. If Baker has both and you're not getting any pressure on them because they're running the ball and play action is alive, that's going to make the Eagles' defense's job that much more difficult. Now you got Slay back. Does that mean that you now all of a sudden, you can get up and start playing a little more aggressively at the line of scrimmage? Because Baker's smart enough to know, hey, if you're going to play 8 to 10 yards off, I'm just going to raise up and throw it to him. He can run slants. He can run quick outs. He can run stop routes at 8 yards. And now we got guys breaking down at 12. And if you miss, now they've turned an 8-yard, 7-yard pass into 12, 15 yards. Get them up and play them a little more aggressively. Even if you're playing quarters coverage, and that guy's got quarters on that side, still, I would like to see him up where you at least take away the idea that he might do that and have him bail at the snap of the football.
All right, on that note, it looks like Avonte Maddox, with Reed Blankenship being out, is going to be playing more of the safety role. He was doing that at practice. Now, it wouldn't be the first time against the Bucs that the Eagles had to make some adjustments. You remember in that Week 3 matchup, James Bradberry had to be playing at the slot position at times. Now Avonte Maddox is going to be dropped back. Do you expect the Eagles then to move a guy like James Bradberry back inside to play slot? Do you use Keely Ringo? Do you use Eli Ricks? What do you do if you have Avonte Maddox drop him back and playing safety?
To be honest with you, I don't know how they feel about Bradley Roby. Ever since Avonte Maddox has been back, he's been kind of demoted. He hadn't played a lot at all. What I'd like to see is that, when you're going to go to your 5-man and you're going to play zone or you're going to drop a safety in the box, drop Byard down in the box, because you've got, Avonte Maddox has got really good speed, okay? He's got above average speed, so I like to see him in the hole where he can read and get to balls where he needs to get to them. I don't want to see James Bradberry in the slot. They haven't had success with it, and now you get into a game planning thing where, the offensive coordinator for the Bucs is going to look at certain situations, and now you're going to get a guy like Mike Evans lined up in the slot in order to draw that coverage on James Bradberry. Put him outside. And if you got to give him help, then give him help. However you got to give him help. But I'd rather see Bradley Roby play on the inside against a Mike Evans where he's more skilled and equipped to do that than putting James Bradberry there where he struggled even more so in the slot than he has on the outside.
I'll tell you what, I think the most exciting move that we've had on the defensive side of the ball in maybe this season is trying Avonte Maddox in this game as a safety because of the reasons that Seth said. That speed that he has, and the guy's got football intelligence. He's got a nose for the ball. He can catch the ball. He can make a play on the ball, and he's certainly not afraid to hit. He's a small guy. He's 5'9", $180 something, soaking wet, but the guy's fearless. He's tough. He's fearless, and that type of speed back there is something that we haven't had. And if he needs to cheat over to help out and to cover, I feel more comfortable with him than with one of these other guys.
Here's my concern, though, with Maddox. I agree with you. I think he has the athleticism and the smarts to do it. But one of the issues we've had with this secondary and this defense is they've had a problem with their communication. They've talked about how things were too complicated. They're not communicating back there. Well, now you're going to have Avonte Maddox playing a position he's never played before. I agree with Seth. I'd like to see Roby at the slot, but we're talking about should Bradbury play the slot? Bradbury should be on the bench. And I'm not joking. You should have Keely Ringo starting. Keely Ringo's going to make some mistakes. He's a rookie. But over the last few weeks, we have seen that Keely Ringo is going to battle. He's going to play hard. I want to see Keely Ringo in this game. You have Darius Slay on the other side. You run Bradley Roby in the slot, and our safeties are Kevin Byard and Avonte Maddox. They got to keep it simple.
You want to know why that's not going to happen?
Because they're paying Bradbury too much money.
There you go.
Follow the money, as always. Follow the money. So that looks at what the Eagles should do defensively speaking. Now when you look at the offense here, I mentioned earlier, look at a couple of things that you want to see from the Eagles in this game, and I mentioned that you got to have a guy like DeAndre Swift have a huge game for the Eagles tonight running the football. 16 carries in that Week 3 matchup. Would love to see him even more than that tonight, and perhaps even more touches. I believe he only had one reception in that game in Week 3. I also need to see a very efficient game from Jalen Hurts. When you break down what Todd Bowles likes to do with his defense, it's very similar to what you're going to be seeing from a guy like Wink Martindale from a week ago. Blitz, and when you're done blitzing, blitz a little bit more. You did not see your offensive line against the Giants last week really step up and start to block that blitz well. They did not shift protection well. Jalen Hurts did not get rid of the football well. Seth, how do you break it down as an offense if you see that type of aggression that you saw a week ago from Todd Bowles in this defense against Jalen Hurts? Do you see him checking down more? You mentioned that earlier. Do you see more runs to establish early to protect Jalen Hurts and also understand where the blitz is coming from? How do you see it broken down in this game?
Well, I think the most important down for the Philadelphia Eagles is going to be first down, because this is what plagued them the last couple of weeks. They don't get anything on first down. They run the ball 1 yard, 2 yards. Now, the really good defensive coordinators, they're like, okay, you have the option to run it or pass it on second down, but we're going to come after you. And we're going to play the run on the way to the quarterback because you like to throw the ball, because we want to get you even further behind the chains. We don't even want to give you the opportunity to get to 3rd and 3, 3rd and 1, where you could take advantage of your tush push. I think the Eagles are going to see even more of that tonight. And so I think the most important down for the Eagles offensively tonight is going to be first down. And their ability that even when you do want to throw the ball on first down, because I think you have to be balanced in how you do that, you can't just come out and run it every first down, run, okay? Even though I want to see them run the football. You have to throw the ball on first down every once in a while just to mix it up and keep defenses honest. But not deep throws down the field. I'm talking uncovers. If you got a zone, if Jalen reads zone on first down, that ball should be going to Dallas Goedert across the middle. Somebody ought to be sitting down in a hole in the zone somewhere to get 4 or 5 yards, and let's be satisfied with that, okay? So that at least on second down, now you're forcing the defense's hand. You want to come after me? Okay, that's fine. We still have the option to run or pass it. We can get 3 or 4 more yards to get to 3rd and short, or get a first down on second down if you want to come. We're going to adjust our routes. We may even run the ball at you and hope that we get into a 3rd and 1 situation where we can get to the brotherly shove. But their mentality and their mindset about how they want to play this game, it must change. They cannot keep throwing the ball on first down. The worst thing, the last thing I want to see is the Eagles come out and throw the ball 5-6 times in a row to start this game, their first offensive possession. You just can't do that. You cannot do that, because you're sending the message that, yeah, hey, you might be ranked what? You may be ranked 28th against the pass and 6th against the run, but at the end of the day, we're going to make you play honest football tonight. No matter how good you are at one thing and how bad you are at the other thing, we're going to make you play honest football all night tonight. We're not going to make ourselves one-dimensional. We're going to force you to make us one-dimensional, you know. And I just think that that's the way that they have to approach the game tonight. It has to be a shift. If they think that they can keep doing business as business has been done for 18 weeks tonight, you're wrong. You're just not going to have a chance to win this game if you continue to do it that way.
And you started the show asking, is Nick Sirianni's job in jeopardy? Mm-hmm. And the only way I could see it being in jeopardy is if they come out again without any plan to protect Jalen Hurts against this blitz. Last week, Wink Martindale. Everybody knew Wink Martindale was going to blitz the Eagles. He blitzed them 83% of his dropbacks 2 weeks earlier. They did not have a plan for the blitz. Everybody knows Todd Bowles is going to blitz the hell out of Jalen Hurts tonight. He did it in Week 3. He did it 2 years ago in the playoffs. If Nick Sirianni and Brian Johnson don't have a plan tonight to stop the blitz, then I think Nick Sirianni's job should be in jeopardy because it'd be criminal.
I will say this. I know we all enjoyed watching the Cowboys lose, and we, of course, opened the show by talking about that as well. How about them boys, of course. But when you look at what happened in that game with Matt LaFleur's game plan going into that game, we're going to take that ball, we're going to march it down the field, they're going to run the ball 8 times, get down the field 75 yards, eat up clock, announce their presence with authority. I watched that entire game, and as much as I basked in the enjoyment of watching the Cowboys lose, and my 4-year-old daughter walking in the room and go, oh, good, the bad guys are losing. And I'm like, she gets it. Good parenting. I look at it the other way. I was marveling at the job that Matt LaFleur did with that offense in Green Bay. Obviously, the execution was incredible, and you want to see the Eagles do that. But Adam, the idea was there. And so many times, we haven't had that opportunity in Philadelphia to be able to look at Nick Sirianni, look at Brian Johnson, look at this offense as a whole and say, oh, this is from start to finish, this was a well-executed game plan. It started with the game plan, it started in the meeting rooms, and you saw it out there on the field. We saw that with Green Bay and how they attacked the Dallas Cowboys. What is your level of confidence looking at the Eagles right now that they'll be able to execute a good game plan?
They got to run the damn ball. They got to run the ball. So, look, you want to keep the other team off the field? Run the ball. You don't want to throw 2 pick sixes? Run the ball. You've got to run the ball. You've got DeAndre Swift, who's the most underutilized, talented back we've had in a long time. You've got Kenny Gainwell, who's shown that he's got the ability to rip off yards, and he just keeps his motor moving. I didn't see we've got Boston Scott. Rashad Penny will be getting somebody Gatorade somewhere. But you've got to run the ball. If we're not running the ball, we're going to leave Jalen open. He's got 15 interceptions on the year. We're going to leave him open to make one of those stupid screen passes to a wide receiver underneath, and something dumb's going to happen. If you run the ball, I've got high confidence that we'll execute the game plan. But the question is, whose game plan? Our game plan, the 4 of us, look, if we're coaching it, yeah, I think we run the ball a lot. We control the clock, and we march down the field. And like to Seth's point, we get first downs and first down after first down after first down. But if we come out and we start looking for the lottery ticket and throw the ball downfield every play, we're in trouble.
So there's been so much that came out of this locker room the last couple of weeks. The conversations from players, the cryptic messages, and all of that kind of stuff. Jordan Mailata was asked about, running the football and how important it is. And, I mean, you're talking about Jordan Mailata. You're not talking about Lane Johnson or Jason Kelsey. You're talking about Jordan Mailata. Jordan Mailata said, we have to run the football, okay? Now, I get it. Players are never going to try to overstep their bounds as far as the authority of coaches, okay? But I've been saying forever, sometimes you have to listen to your players. When your players come off the field and they're telling you. Now, you got coaches up in the press box. You got coaches on the sideline. They are monitoring everything. You got, Microsoft Surface Pros. You got everything at your disposal. But there's nothing like the feeling that a player brings off, a respected player, that he brings off the field and says, Coach, we can do this. We can do that. We can get this done, And if these players come off the field and they're telling Nick Sirianni that we can run the football and they don't do it, that's a problem. That's a problem because the strength of this offense, no matter, you can have Jalen Hurts, you can have A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, the list goes on and on and on. You can have all the players that you want to, but this team has been built on the strength of the defense and the offensive line. And if you're not going to utilize the strength of the offensive line by running the football, that's coaching negligence, in my opinion.
All right, we're going to come up a little bit later in the show. Obviously, we're going to have our predictions as per usual. But also, John McMullen's going to be joining the show from Tampa. We have a couple other surprises in store as the Malamut Law pregame show continues after this.
Any professional sports coach will tell you there's no substitution for preparation. At Malamut & Associates, that is a tenet by which we live. We prepare from day one for victory. Anything less is not acceptable.
Go for the poles and the pools. Go for the oohs and the Oz. Go for the bubbles and the bubbly. Go for the story and the stories. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
Football and Hooters, the perfect pair.
They're carving them up and good play calling along the way. First and goal at the 6.
On the field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Any professional sports coach will tell you there's no substitution for preparation. At Malamut Associates, that is a tenet by which we live. We prepare from day one for victory. Anything less is not acceptable.
EAGLES. Eagles.
Welcome back to the Malamut Law pregame show here at the incredible Gallery Bar Booking Games at Ocean Casino right here in Atlantic City. Marc Farzetta, Alan Malamut, of course, also Legal Hands to the Face podcast host, as well as Philly Sports Power Hour, Bill Colarulo, and Eagles Hall of Famer Seth Joyner. Momentarily, we're going to be joined by John McMullen in Tampa Bay, standing by at Raymond James Stadium, where he's going to be giving us the latest on what the Eagles' plans are for tonight. But one of the things we haven't talked about much, sure, we've talked about Jalen Hurts' play and what you want to see from him, what you want to see from this Eagles running back core as well. But what level of play is Jalen Hurts going to be at when it comes to that injured right finger that was dislocated last week against the Giants? The last we heard from head coach Nick Sirianni when he addressed the media on Saturday was that he was throwing the ball fairly well, but he's really tough and he's a fighter and he's going to fight his way through this injury. Seth, this is a quarterback here that we're talking about gripping the football. And if you're talking about a guy, as you mentioned earlier, trying to throw the football downfield to appease his coaches, I would assume it'd be a little bit more difficult to do that if you can't get a good grip on the old pigskin.
Well, let's start off with some short to intermediate throws that you know that he can comfortably complete before we start trying to sling it all over the map. You know, listen, I've never played quarterback before, so I don't know what it's like to have to grip the ball and throw the football, you know, when you're in a game like this. But listen, if my finger's been dislocated, we just tape that bad boy together with the other one, put a popsicle stick on it and, you know, and go to work. But it's different for the quarterback because he's got to handle the ball, not only handing it off, but he's also got to throw the ball downfield. So it'll be one of those situations where we have to wait and see how it is that he's able to comport himself with the finger being the way that it is. You know, it's not one of those things where you can shoot it up and numb it, because he's got to be able to feel the ball. You know, you can't feel the ball with 4 fingers and not the other. You know, especially it's the middle finger. That's like an important finger when you're throwing the football. So we'll have to wait and see what he's able to accomplish and what he's able to do under those circumstances.
That's an important finger at a Cowboys game too.
If you trust Britton Covey, Britton Covey was quoted as saying he was throwing lasers at practice. So
all right,
take that what you will.
Crash test, that's all I need to see then. So there's a couple of things. When I was trying to outline.
There went the competitive advantage for Nick Sirianni.
Yeah, right. But when I look at this game and I try to look at it optimistically, And I say, okay, legitimately, the Eagles need to do this to win the game. Now, obviously, Jalen Hurts is there, DeAndre Swift we talked about. How about the turnover battle? The turnover battle has not been a thing for the Eagles as of late. Last year, it started to really turn around under Jonathan Gannon. They started to take control of the game by getting those turnovers, getting those clutch moments, and then that kind of went away this season. And the Eagles have been giving the ball away more than they've been taking the ball away. I think a guy like Hassan Reddick, and Adam, I know you mentioned it earlier, Bill, you said the same thing. Having a guy like Hassan Reddick, I don't know, do that thing that he does so damn well, which is get after the quarterback, could disrupt things a little bit and lead to one of those turnovers tonight.
Yeah, Baker Mayfield protects the ball very well. The Bucs have done a nice job not turning the ball over that much. They've done a decent job taking it away. They finished the season with a +8 turnover differential. We know the Eagles have struggled, both taking it away and turning it over. They finished the season with a -10 turnover differential. But you just got to go back and look at these last 6 games. The whole reason the city has lost hope is you look at the last 6 games for the Eagles, -8 turnover differential over the last 6. You look at the Tampa Bay Bucs, they're 5-1, +5 turnover differential in the last 6. So that has to change tonight. You cannot lose the turnover battle. Eagles are a better roster. They should be a better team on paper. But we know how quickly a game can change if you can't protect the football.
You know, the thing that I think people lose sight of, you know, we talk about getting turnovers. But when we talk about, you know, when we as players talked about getting turnovers, we would use the phrase forced turnovers, okay? Turnovers are forced. It's not like your quarterback's going to say, here's the ball. It's not like the wide receivers are running down the field or the running backs running down the field and they're like, here's the ball. You have to force it. But forced turnovers only come, you know, on the heels of being an aggressive defense. If you're not aggressive, then you're never forcing the action. You're always having the action forced upon you. That has to change. You know, if you get into the quarterback and the quarterback can't see you, yeah, you can chop at the ball, you can chop at his arm. You're forcing a fumble. You know, the couple of turnovers that we've had, the punch out, that's forced. James Bradbury, Worley Burden coming back, that's forced. The Eagles don't play in an aggressive way, so that's why they're so, you know, in the abyss on the defensive side of the ball at getting turnovers or forcing turnovers because they play so passively. A lot of the times you can balance things out, even if the offense is turning the ball over. If you can turn it over defensively, then that -8 over the last 6 games or the -10 on the year, that can be mitigated in a lot of ways, but it's not because we don't turn the ball over on the defensive side of the ball as much as we're turning it over on the offensive side of the football.
Yeah, they completely flip-flopped from last season. You look at last year's numbers, Eagles only turned the ball over 19 times. They took it away 28. This year, they've turned it over 28 times, and they've only taken it away 18. So they did a complete flip-flop from what they did last season.
All right, now we know the weather in our parts here isn't so great, isn't so friendly, but maybe down in Tampa it's a little bit better. Let's head down and talk to our friend John McMullen, our NFL insider, also co-host of Birds 365 here on the JAKIB Sports channel. John, how you doing? And how's this secondary going to shake out with Reed Blankenship being inactive for tonight's game?
Yeah, I mean, we kind of knew during the week, Mark, that it was going to be Avonte Maddox. Kevin Byard kind of let it out of the bag that Avonte's been working with him. Reed had not practiced all week. They took it up to game time. He barely even did anything on the field, so he wasn't that close. Looked like Nick was playing a little competitive advantage with that one, but it will be Avonte Maddox playing at safety. Remember, they lost Sidney Brown as well in that Giants game, so they took a big hit at the safety position. But I will say, obviously, Avonte's done it in the past. He's also a little speedier than the other options, so maybe if you're looking for a silver lining, speed in the secondary, it's been a problem for the Eagles all season. Maybe they get a little bit more with Avonte Maddox playing on the back end.
John, you know, I always want to know, how did our Eagles travel for this game?
Eagles fans, well, you know, most of the flights, most of the hotels are filled with Eagle fans, but I got to tell you, not as much juice as typical, and a little bit surprising considering it is a playoff game. I think you're going to see plenty of Eagles fans here, though. Places just starting to fill up now. Probably about 10 or 15,000 people are in the stands, plenty of green. So I do think It's going to be the typical sort of Eagles, certainly showing up. Eagles fans certainly showing up on the road, but I think they're a little bit hesitant to get in with this team because they struggled down the stretch so mightily.
John, we always talk about whether they should run the ball, whether they should throw the ball, but this Tampa Bay Bucs team overall does give up a lot of yards. Not necessarily rushing yards, but overall a lot of yards. What they don't give up a lot of is points, and that's because they have a top 3 red zone defense. And if you go back to week 3, even though the Eagles put up over 470 yards of offense, they only scored 25 points. You would have expected them to have more, but they went 1 of 5 in the red zone. What makes this Bucs defense so good when offenses get inside the 20?
Well, Todd Bowles brings pressure. So when it gets in condensed spaces, you can have a little bit more confidence in the secondary. You can take a few more chances. It is interesting, you're right, Bill, because on paper they have a very poor defense, 23rd in the NFL, 29th in passing defense, and 7th in points per game given up. You just don't see that kind of differential typically in the NFL. What you're talking about, though, that red zone defense is 3rd in the NFL. So the old bend but don't break, the Buccaneers kind of let people go up and down the field. And then when they get in the red zone, they really amp up the pressure. And they can maybe hide their deficiencies at the cornerback position a little bit more on the shorter field. But it is interesting because you typically don't see bad defense, and then good defense in one key part of the game, and that's exactly what Todd Bowles has put together.
John, is there any way possible that, I read a quote from Nick Sirianni a couple of weeks ago. Someone asked him in one of his press conferences, hey, Nick, do you have any idea how to fix what's going on with this football team? And I was really shocked by his response. He actually said, if I had an idea what the issues were or what the fix was, I would have done it a long time ago. Now, that being said, they've had a certain mindset all season long about how they wanted to philosophically run this offense. And it hasn't worked from the standpoint of them being able to have any kind of efficiency or consistency. Now, you look at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They are 6th against the rush. They were better against the rush in week 3 than the pass, and the Eagles ran for over 200 yards on them. And they're 28th against the pass, which kind of lends itself to the Eagles probably coming out throwing the ball all over the map this game. If what you've been trying to accomplish over the last 18 weeks hasn't worked, is there even a remote possibility that there could be an adjustment in the mindset of how they call plays tonight opposed to how they've been doing it?
Yeah, but I think that change in mindset might come from the inavailability of A.J. Brown. I mean, A.J. Brown is the Eagles', I think, best pure football player, regardless of position. He's not available, so you do have to shift and change a little bit. And obviously, you're not just not going to run. A.J. plays for Quez Watkins or Julio Jones. If you do, you're going to get beat pretty quickly. So I do think that is an injury that has to change your thinking. Now, I think because of how the Eagles finished, their offense wasn't poor all season. I mean, we have to be fair. They finished 8th. They have 7th. They're number 7 in points per game. We just gave Tampa credit for being number 7, giving up points. Well, the Eagles are number 7, scoring points, 3rd and 3rd down offense, 1st and 4th down offense, 9th in red zone offense. That's over the whole 18 games. So the Eagles' offense hasn't been poor the whole season. They've been poor down the stretch, as the entire team has been poor down the stretch. And to your original point, Seth, what Nick was trying to say is they're trying to fix things. They haven't been able to fix things. Obviously, they want to shift things and get back to their earlier success. And that mainly comes with execution and handling things a little bit better. The silver lining of losing a player, talked about the silver lining of getting Maddox in there at safety. Maybe it is. I mean, Philadelphia wants to run the football. Well, without A.J. Brown, maybe you start saying, you know what, we better run the football a little bit more 12 personnel, more 13 personnel. And if DeAndre Swift starts getting a hot hand early, maybe they ride him to the finish line. But I do think no A.J. Brown changes things dramatically for the Eagles offense.
John, so on that note, obviously it's got to be a team effort here when it comes to the next man up, but is there somebody more specific that you think needs to be the guy to really help out Jalen Hurts today? Is that DeAndre Swift? Is that Devontae Smith? Is that even Dallas Goedert? Or is it one of the guys that was referenced earlier in the week when we talked about Quez Watkins saying that he's always been ready, to paraphrase what he had to say? Who's the guy that has to step up in A.J. Brown's absence?
I think it's one of those things where it takes a village. Nobody's going to step up and replace A.J. Brown, even Devontae Smith. Obviously, Devontae's got to step up. He's going to be the number one receiver. But you're going to have a bunch of people chipping in. As I said, I think you go more towards the running game. DeAndre Swift, Kenny Gainwell as well. Dallas Goedert has to step up, so everybody kind of moves up a spot. And what you want out of Quez Watkins or Julio Jones is just a little bit more production as that third option in the passing game. Can they do it? You know, there were some numbers for Quez Watkins against the Giants, but remember, Devontae wasn't playing in that game. AJ got hurt early in that game, so I compared it to like a 20-point scorer on a bad NBA team. Somebody's got to score some points, right? That's sort of what it was. You don't want him getting 11 targets in a playoff game. If he's getting 11 targets in a playoff game, it's probably a bad sign.
John, one of my concerns is that we're going to try to stretch the field early, and we're going to take chances early because we don't have that A.J. Brown who has the ability to go across the middle, catch the ball low, and pick it up and make something of it. And going long early, as we know, has not been Jalen's strength this season. What's your thoughts on how we may be able to balance out the offense, or what they'll come out and do to avoid putting Jalen in a position where he's forcing those errors early on in the game?
Well, I think Jalen's been a lot like the team, and I think there is a certain recency bias in that, look, everybody remembers what just happened, and what just happened is the Eagles lost 5 of 6. They'd struggled getting the football down the field. I think you've seen in the playoffs this weekend doesn't necessarily carry over. Dallas was a world beater at home. They got destroyed by the Green Bay Packers. You've seen, Kansas City dominate. You've seen different players. You had a good game with the Rams and the Lions. But a lot of things from the regular season didn't carry over in the playoffs. I think the hope is his sense of urgency gets the Eagles back on track a little bit. Jalen Hurts was a very good deep ball thrower early in the season, was a very good deep ball thrower last season. Because he didn't do it over a stretch of 6 games doesn't mean he can't do it. He's just got to get back to the good habits and getting the football in the right spot to different people. The problem is, you talked about A.J. over the middle of the field. A.J. is a yards after catch guy. He's also a great deep ball receiver. So, you don't have that option. Quez can run by people, but can he track the football? Can he win 50-50 balls like A.J.? Probably not. So that's where I think you got to be realistic and scale things back. And probably, as I said, be a little bit more what most Eagles fans want, and that run the football with DeAndre Swift. But that's dependent also on getting the lead and DeAndre Swift being successful early.
You talk about trends not carrying over from the regular season. A trend I'm hoping doesn't carry over is the Philadelphia Eagles edge rushers went the last 4 games of the year without a sack, first time in 18 years. You look at the last 8 weeks of the season, they had the 3rd fewest sacks in the entire NFL, 3rd to only the Panthers and the Cardinals. What does this Eagles D-line need to do tonight to try to get pressure on Baker Mayfield and hopefully get some sacks, something we haven't seen in a while?
Yeah, Josh Sweat specifically hasn't had a sack since October 5th. So with Hassan Reddick, it's been 4 games. With Josh Sweat, it's been a lot longer. And what's ironic is Josh has still set a career high in pressures and quarterback hits. So There's been some good, but they haven't been getting home. They haven't finishing. I really think last season skewed the expectations, and I say that for a number of reasons. One, there's only 4 teams in the history of football that got 70 sacks. 3 or 4, I forget the number. So it wasn't going to happen again. Even if Jonathan Gannon was back, even if the 5 starters were back, it wasn't going to happen again. If you rewind to 2021, the Eagles were 31st in sacks, 31st in the NFL. They have a lot of good pressure guys, but they don't have finishers. It's sort of been the definition of Brandon Graham's career, by the way. He's a great player, but he was never a great finisher. So I think at this stage of the game, the Eagles don't have great finishers except for Hassan Reddick. So people are trying to take Hassan out of the game. The other guys aren't taking advantage of it. And then Jalen Carter, obviously, whether anybody wants to admit it or not, if you look at week 3 against Tampa here, he was dominant in that football game. Dominant. You get the rookie wall. He hasn't been the same player. So will that ramp up that sense of urgency I was talking about in the playoffs? Will that help guys like Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis? Will they start reverting back to their early season form? You got to hope that. But the Eagles, you got to be honest, they don't have finishers as pass rushers with the exception of Hassan Reddick.
John, so sticking on the defensive side of the ball, for the first time, I've seen bits and pieces of, the coaches' press conferences, but this week I watched all the press conferences. I watched Nick Sirianni's Wednesday press conference followed by both coordinators, and really I heard a whole lot of mumbo jumbo, a whole lot of nothing, particularly out of Mac Patricia, and his approach to what he's doing with this defense. The players have talked about the confusion. The defense, in my opinion, has been worse since the transition. If there's one thing that Matt Patricia can do tonight to give this defense an opportunity to be more effective in what they're doing and allow them to play at 100 miles per hour, in your opinion, what is that? Because I see him doing a lot of experimentation. There's a lack of communication that creates a lot of confusion on the field, and sometimes you just got to dumb it down for the players, especially in a situation like this, and give them just the basics. Minimize what you're doing so that they can play 110 miles an hour and fly to the football.
Yeah, I've been saying that for a couple of weeks, Seth. They got to simplify this thing. Simplify, simplify, simplify. We've been talking about their scheme, their defensive scheme for, 2 years now, really 3 years now, the Vic Fangio scheme. You have all these different coverages, all these different moving parts. Now you're talking about Avonte Maddox moving back to safety. You can't play cover 6, cover 4, cover 2, go back and forth, and expect seamless communication. So I would simplify things, make them, as you said, help them play fast. That's your best way to. You're never going to have a great defense because I don't think they have the personnel to have a great defense, but I think they can settle things down. And can they play representative football? Can they play middle of the road football? And I think if they can do that defensively, I think they can win this game because, Tampa isn't very explosive offensively either, so that helps from that perspective. But I think they've really, really got to simplify things on the defensive side of the ball. I think they realize that. I think we're going to see that tonight, but we'll have to wait and see.
John, before we get your prediction, last thing for me is the mood of the locker room going into this game. I mean, there's been a lot of questions asked about Nick Sirianni. There have been a lot of questions asked about his job status, what this game means to him as the Eagles head coach. Overall, when you look at the coaching staff, you look at the players, what's the mood going into this game from the NovaCare complex?
Well, I'm sure everybody hears all the whispers. I mean, it's pretty clear to me that Nick Sirianni is not losing his job. Now, that doesn't mean Jeffrey Lurie's not going to demand scapegoats for not reaching expectations. So there is that sort of Damocles hanging over the Eagles at this point. They realize things are not going to be great if they lose this football game. How do you handle that pressure? That can go in a positive way, that can go in a negative way. But I don't think Nick Sirianni's coaching for his job. I do think, as I said, we've learned from the Doug Peterson era, there will be scapegoats for not reaching expectations. If they lose this game, obviously they will have not reached their expectation. If they win it, and you'll start seeing the optimism grow as they head to Detroit, and who knows what happens from there. But, yeah, there's a lot hanging on this game, just not for the head coach.
And then finally, John, what is your prediction for this wild card matchup with the Bucs?
Yeah, I've been going back and forth. When AJ was officially ruled out, I kind of thought about it, can this team persevere without its best player? And then I sort of, over the past couple of days, I sort of swung back to the Eagles. Tampa Bay's just not that good. They're not that talented. So I think the Eagles have better football players in more positions, and I think the best team will win. And believe it or not, I think it's a positive thing for the Eagles to get out of Philadelphia, play this game on the road. I think that's actually going to help them. Darius Slay talked about it. A couple other guys talked about it off the record with me. Things are so negative back in Philadelphia. I think it's a positive that they're down here in Central Florida. So in a weird way, I think that's going to help the Eagles. I think they're going to find a way to win the game, probably 24-18.
24-18 in favor of the Eagles. John McMullen, NFL insider for JAKIB Sports, co-host of Birds 365 right here on the JAKIB Sports channel. Thanks so much, and safe travels back. We'll talk to you after the game in the post-game show, of course.
Thanks, guys.
Absolutely, John McMullen. Oh, and let's not forget the halftime show.
Wow, that's a new one on me.
What's that?
To be out of the city so you don't have to deal with the negativity. You'd rather be on the road than at home.
Now, you mentioned you listened to more of the press conferences this week. Did you hear Darius Slay? Did you hear Slay?
No. But I heard what he said.
Yeah. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
I thought he said it tongue-in-cheek more than anything, but still people didn't like it.
To even float it out there, it amazes me the lack of awareness that certain guys who play in the city of Philadelphia actually have. Some of the things that they say. Do you not know where you're playing? Mm-hmm. Do you not know what this fan base is about and what this city expects? How do you even make it tongue-in-cheek or whatever,
Either way, I didn't like it because that you not playing at home means you lost going into the postseason. Yeah. Like, that's not a good thing. That's never a good thing.
No, and Darius Slay can't help himself. I mean, he's been putting his foot in his mouth all year.
Very true.
I'm excited to have him back tonight.
As am I.
Are you?
Yeah, I think he's going to help in the passing game. I don't think – look, in the running game, are we expecting Darius Slay to come up and put his shoulder pads into somebody's chest? No.
Yeah,
but in the passing game.
I get that. I get that. But, the one thing that the young kids have been doing, both Ringo and Ricks, they will come up and they'll support the run.
They will.
Something that these other two guys who they put a lot of money in won't do.
No, but Seth, if you have your choice of having Slay back or having more Bradbury, I'll take Slay back any day.
Well, you're going to have Bradbury anyway because Bradbury is healthy.
And making money.
You're going to get that. I've been saying all along, I'd rather see the young kids play because at least they're going to give you full effort.
I agree.
All right, now we're going to continue to break down Eagles-Bucs for this wild card matchup coming up in a minute. Also, final segment of the show, we're going to be talking to a very special guest who's going to stop by, tell us about a charity we've been talking about all season long. More of the Malamut Law pregame show when we come back.
Any professional sports coach will tell you there's no substitution for preparation. At Malamut & Associates, that is a tenet by which we live. We prepare from day one for victory. Anything less is not acceptable.
Go for the poles and the pools. Go for the oohs and the ahs. Go for the bubbles and the bubbly. Go for the story and the stories. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
Football and Hooters, the perfect pair.
They're carving them up and good play calling along the way. First and goal at the 6.
On the field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Any professional sports coach will tell you there's no substitution for preparation. At Malamut Associates, that is a tenet by which we live. We prepare from day one for victory. Anything less is not acceptable.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome back to the Malamut Law pregame show here at Ocean Casino Gallery Bar Booking Games. You might recognize our friend Jerry Davis from the United States Marine Corps is here to talk more about his charity, Battlefield to the Ballfields. And this is helping people, veterans, become referees?
Yes.
All right.
Yes,
How has it been going since we saw you on the Battlefield, New Jersey back in week 4?
We have everything set up. Now we need the veterans. That's
Okay.
what I'm here for.
Okay.
We have our first meeting set for February 24th at the VFW in Conshohocken, 2 p.m. We have our website set up, which is b2bofficials.com or b2bofficialsphilly.com. Our Facebook page is B2B Philly, and our email is b2bofficialsphilly@gmail.com.
All right. Now, what kind of response have you gotten from people so far, just in terms of people that are already involved in the organization?
We have a good response. The problem is we need the veterans. So it's a lot of going to VA post and talking and hanging little flyers around, putting our business card where we can on windshields and all, and trying to get the word out.
It's such a great organization that you guys have, and a great organization that you guys are running, obviously, as well. I do want to ask you an Eagles question here. Last time, did you have the Seth Joyner jersey on the last time we saw you?
No, I did not.
No, he got it right this time.
How you feeling about your Birds, and do the Cowboys losing give you any more confidence?
The Cowboys losing was great. I mean, it's everybody in Philly likes that. But I'm not feeling good about the Eagles.
Not feeling good tonight?
No.
Well, neither am I.
I think they lost that coach, lost the team. That's what I think.
Okay, well, you're a man who has obviously done things on a much more serious platform. All right, what happens when the voice of authority is being questioned this much?
That is a kiss of death. I mean, you have that in the service. You have leaders that come in and want you to follow them just because they're a certain rank. But once you lose them, you lose the troops, you're done.
And do you think that's happened here with the Eagles?
I do. Because they're not playing with heart.
All right, I'm terrified to ask you your prediction with the direction that we're going, unfortunately, but I have to ask you your prediction for the game tonight.
I have the Eagles losing like 34-14.
All right, so just give me the website again. No, all right. So if someone is a veteran and they want to become an official and they want to get involved with B&B, Battlefield to Ballfield, how do they do it?
Send me an email. That's probably the best way, and that's b2bofficialsphilly@gmail.com, and then we'll get in touch with you and set it up from there.
Are you guys on social media?
We are Facebook. We have B2B Philly. We couldn't put the whole thing out there,
Yeah.
so
Is
that's
that
what we are.
B, the number 2B, correct?
Correct. It's B, the number 2B
Right.
officials. Yes.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for everything you have done. Thank you, obviously, for this great charity, because I know, speaking from experience with my own family members, it's difficult for people to make that transition back to civilian life, and it can be very difficult for people, obviously veterans especially. So this is a beautiful thing, and it also helps them maintain some authority, and also puts them in an important position and back on a field of play.
Yeah, we're going to make it work.
Oh, you absolutely.
We're going to make it work.
Jerry Davis, I have absolutely zero doubt that you'll make it work. Thank you again, my friend.
Yep, thank you guys.
Thanks, Jerry. All right, we're going to jump to our predictions We've been talking a lot about this Eagles game, obviously. We've been talking a lot about this Eagles team and what has been the demise over the last 6 weeks of the season. Hit me again. I'm sorry. All right, so we're going to take a break right now, our last break of the show. When we come back, we'll give our official predictions for Eagles-Bucs tonight.
Any professional sports coach will tell you there's no substitution for preparation. At Malamut & Associates, that is a tenet by which we live. We prepare from day one for victory. Anything less is not acceptable.
Go for the poles and the pools. Go for the oohs and the ahs. Go for the bubbles and the bubbly. Go for the story and the stories. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
Football and Hooters, the perfect pair.
They're carving them up, and good play calling along the way. First and goal at the 6.
On the field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Any professional sports coach will tell you there's no substitution for preparation. At Malamut & Associates, that is a tenet by which we live. We prepare from day one for victory. Anything less is not acceptable.
Somebody got some money.
EAGLES. Eagles.
Welcome back to the Malamut Law pregame show here from Ocean Casino's amazing gallery bar booking games ahead of the Eagles taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the wild card round of the playoffs. I feel like we've done a decent job so far of discussing the things that the Eagles need to do to win this game. Of course, at the end of this segment, we'll give our official predictions, but spoiler from me here, I do not feel good about this Eagles game tonight. My stance right now, and you guys can tell me if I'm crazy because I don't think this is outlandish at all, it just seems like right now with the Philadelphia Eagles, way too many things have gone wrong to correct at this point in the season. And Seth, you referenced it earlier from Nick Sirianni addressing the media, and you were questioning some of the things he was saying. Well, one of my biggest problems was that when he was asked about the issues that this team has had, he went on this long diatribe about the numbers of the regular season and being ranked in the top 10 in offense, being ranked in the top 10 in points, being ranked in the top 10 in a third down efficiency as an offense, improving in the red zone. He referenced all these things that the Eagles, when they were playing their best football, were doing extremely well. And the Eagles, for 11 weeks, were playing some pretty damn good football, with the one blemish being against the New York Jets. But you can't go back to that well at this point in the season, especially after you posted those same numbers and made such a drastic decision, especially on the defensive side of the football, with Matt Patricia taking over for Sean Desai. So how do you reference numbers that you, even as an organization and as a team, still felt like while you were putting up those numbers, you need to make that drastic a change? How do you reference that and try to pull confidence from it when everyone with a brain is looking at it saying, it's a little different now?
Yeah, but you know what happens, Farzy, is when you've been in a funk like the Eagles have been, you're searching for hope wherever you can find hope. And you're searching for any kind of encouragement wherever you can find it. And that's what Nick Sirianni is doing. Listen, I said that, I'm hopeful, but I'm not optimistic about how they're going to perform tonight. A lot of times in a situation like this, in a game of this magnitude, all it takes is for one or two things to go right at the right time in order for things to kind of get back on track for this game. That doesn't have anything to do with what it might look like down the road, but in this game, this is the only thing that they can focus on. They're playing against an opponent that they've already beat, so there's some confidence that they can beat them because they've already done so. At the other end of the spectrum, they've been searching. The small things that they could tweak and change, like running the football and having hot routes and side adjustments added and simplifying what you're doing defensively and bringing some pressure every once in a while and doing some things that are off schedule and off tendency of what you've been doing can make all the difference in the world for this football team tonight. And all they need is a little bit of success early, a little bit of hope early that things can go in the right direction and things can just out of nowhere begin to snowball for them. So that's the hope that we bring to the table tonight. Otherwise, we're going fishing. I'm going on vacation to get me some salt, sun, and seawater, okay? I don't know what you guys are doing, but, this is the last week that we'll be together.
We're going with you.
Come on.
Malamut 1. We're taking Malamut 1.
There you go.
Not where he's going.
But that's what, this football team is facing right now. You either dig down deep and find a way, to make some positive things happen early that you can turn into momentum, or things take a negative turn and the momentum that you've created over the last 6 weeks continues to snowball out of control.
Adam, I'll throw this to you. Is it crazy to think that just too many things have gone wrong for this Eagles team to all of a sudden flip that proverbial switch and now they go and they win this game tonight?
Bill, at the beginning of the game, at the beginning of the show, talked about Brendan Graham talking about this game, right? Bill talked about, Brendan Graham said, we're 0-0. This is a new season. So, no, I don't subscribe to what happened in the past. Am I comfortable because of the lack of what appears to be team synergy? I'm not comfortable. I'm beyond hopeful. Seth's hopeful. We talked about this before the show. I'm optimistic. I do think we can win. I don't think this is going to be – I've always predicted blowouts, and that's the fandom in me. I don't think that logically you can predict a blowout. I am a little bit disappointed in your negative Nelly side of you, Farzy. We'll counsel you on that later. We got to send Farzy for some positivity therapy.
Right.
This is killing me.
Well, as I think most fans would say, it doesn't give me a reason to be positive.
Philly-tude, man. I gave it to you before.
Yeah, it's true.
It's Philly-tude.
Yeah.
One team, right? Malamut Law. We say one team. We need Philly-tude.
Oh, fair enough. All right, Bill, I mean, you referenced some numbers there, the historic numbers, especially when it comes to edge rushers not being able to get after the quarterback there. It's not that really hard to believe when you think about the defensive scheme of Matt Patricia or the play calling of Matt Patricia, and during that time, Hassan Reddick has been asked to drop back in coverage more than he ever has as a Philadelphia Eagle. So for me, I look at this game and I look for the reasons to be hopeful, and I am hopeful. I am never rooting for the Eagles to lose the game. But when it comes to this particular game tonight, is it crazy to think that they can make so many right so many wrongs as the end of the season?
With this Eagles team, nothing's crazy. I mean, it wouldn't shock me if they came out and played a really flat game and lost, but I'm not expecting that. There's still a reason why they're a 3-point favorite on the road in Tampa. They are a better team than the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That hasn't necessarily helped them over the last few weeks, but when you look at the rosters, they're the better team. They have the better quarterback. They have the better players. And one thing I keep coming back to is there's 3 guys on this Philadelphia Eagles team who now sit 1, 2, and 3 in most games played in Philadelphia Eagles franchise history. Brandon Graham, Jason Kelce, Fletcher Cox. Tonight, if they lose, could be the last time that we would see those 3 Eagles legends in a Philadelphia Eagles uniform. I cannot imagine that those 3 guys didn't spill their hearts out to this team to come out and play hard tonight. And you're forgetting one real important factor, Farzy. Big Dom is back on the sidelines tonight. 10-1 with Big Dom. So you got all these things going for us, but really, all joking aside, they're the better team. They should win this football game. And I look at A.J. Brown being out of this game. I'm taking the silver lining. This will force the Eagles' offense to develop a game plan where they're not forcing the ball down the field to A.J. Brown. They're going to have to get creative. They're going to have to throw the intermediate routes. They're going to have to take advantage of a Dallas Goedert, a Devontae Smith, getting the ball in your playmakers' hands like DeAndre Swift, maybe even Kenny Gainwell out of the backfield. I think they win this game. I have no reason to believe that this team, after the way they've played the last 6 weeks, is going to play well, but I just can't imagine that they lose this football game in Tampa Bay. I'm going Birds.
I agree with Bill from the standpoint that this provides an opportunity for Jalen Hurts to spread the ball around and not get locked in on his 1A wide receiver. I look for him to spread the ball. Dallas Goedert should have 7 or 8 targets tonight. Devontae Smith should have about 10 targets tonight. Quez Watkins should have at least 5 targets tonight. Julio Jones should have 3 to 4 targets tonight. And you should have at least 2 or 3 targets to the backs coming out of the backfield in any capacity that you want. But it provides an opportunity for him to express the full weaponry of the Philadelphia Eagles offense. And that's not a slight towards, A.J. Brown, because he's just that good that he should get 10-plus targets a game. But when he's not there, this provides an opportunity for him to go bam, 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 bam through his progression and get the ball to where it needs to go without having to worry about not getting the ball to your 1A.
Yeah, Brian Johnson at a press conference admitted as such that, yes, we are going to force the ball to A.J. Brown. He's that good, we're going to force the ball. They don't have to do that tonight. So I'm expecting a big win for the Eagles. I think everyone's going to be fired up, and we're going to Detroit next week.
More encouraging words as to the brain power that goes into these game plans. We're going to force it. But when you look at this whole situation, Seth, as a player, everyone understands what's gone on as the season is wound down. We talked about the switch earlier in the show. If you are a veteran in this situation and if people are calling into question it, and like it or not, A.J. Brown spoke beautifully for 13 minutes a couple of weeks ago about how this is our fault as players. This is not on the coaches. The coaches, they are not lacing it up. This is on us. Well, then he was also asked during that press conference, does everyone feel like you feel? He's like, well, I can't speak for everybody, which tells you that there is a problem with some players on this team. So even if there is questioning of the authority in that locker room of this coaching staff and who's really making the play calls, who's really making personnel decisions, who really made the decision, whether it was Nick Sirianni or as Hassan Reddick put it, the higher-ups that made the decision to make the switch to Matt Patricia. How do they, if you're blocking out the authoritative figures, you would have to think that some of those veterans would then step up and take on even more of a leadership role for a team that might be falling apart at the seams.
Well, the loudest voices that we've heard all week have been the voices of those said veterans in the locker room. That's the first thing. The second thing is, as football players, your job is to execute. And I get it. It is incumbent upon the coaching staff to put players in the best possible position that you can put them in to succeed. And whether it's in the game or whether you're reviewing the film after the game or it's the process of going through, game planning, as a player, you don't feel that the coaching staff is utilizing the skill sets of the players the right way. That's one thing. But once you step on the field, you can't go on the field with this sense of doubt where what's being called, you're questioning, because your job is to execute. No matter what it looks like. There's been plenty of times where calls have been sent in and we looked at each other in the huddle and was like, why are we playing that? But you know what we did? We respected the coaching staff enough to go out and try to execute it to the best of our ability. Now, this is a game as such. From the veteran who might not be here, it might be his last game as an Eagle, right down to the rookie just stepping into the limelight of the playoffs for the very first time. Your mindset has to be, we're together. We're going to approach this thing together. We're going to execute together. And understanding the finality of it all. Do you want to go to Detroit next week, or does this game seem like the last 2 games that you played where you really didn't care about it, to read Dallas Goedert's point, and we're just frothing at the mouth to get to the playoffs? No, now you're here. Now you're in the midst of it all. And now you have an opportunity to show up and put your skills on display as a unit, defense, offense, and special teams, against a team that you've already beaten this year, okay? So what are you going to put out on the field tonight? Are you going to show what you're made of as a team, as a unit, and the leaders are going to lead? Or are you going to continue to do what you've been doing and throw even more gas on the fire of doubt of the fans and the media in this city? I think that they show up tonight. That's my opinion.
They show up tonight. The Eagles show up tonight. We see a little bit more of that team that we saw through the vast majority of the season. All right, let's get into our predictions. Adam, I'm going to start with you. Eagles-Bucs tonight, wild card round, kicking off in about 20 minutes. What are you looking at?
Pain. I'm sorry. That's my Rocky.
There you go. All right.
That's my Rocky.
Fair enough.
All right. So I think that the Eagles are going to come out. I think they're going to perform. I think they're going to hit stride early. Whatever the game plan is, I think that the leaders are going to lead, and that's what we've been waiting for. We've been waiting for leaders to lead, and I think that they're going to surprise us by coming together, playing as one team. They're going to lead Eagles 24-20.
24-20, Eagles win this game. Bill, where are you at?
I think the Eagles win this game pretty handedly. I don't know if it's going to be a really pretty game, but I think they'll be able to shut down the Bucs' run offense. I don't think they have a good rushing offense at all. I think they will turn them into a one-dimensional offense, do a good job of hopefully limiting Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. I don't think they'll shut them down entirely, but limit them. I don't see the Bucs scoring more than 17 points tonight. I think the Eagles will establish the run. I think their playmakers will make some plays. I have them winning 27-17.
27-17. I'm going to say my score first and then explain why I hope I'm wrong. I have the Eagles losing this game 24-17. But if they are going to win this game, I hope you guys did a great job of trying to convince me, though. God bless you for that. But when it comes to this game tonight, again, I just go back to too many things have to go right for a team where nothing has gone right over the last 6 games, unfortunately. And I look at too many mistakes that have to be corrected this late in the season. The playoffs for the Eagles start tonight. If they win this game tonight, though, I think DeAndre Swift is going to be a huge star of the show. If they win this game tonight, it's because Jalen Hurts was not asked to do everything and had a very efficient game, and they also forced a turnover to help them secure a win tonight. But I don't see those 3 things happening. I think the Eagles are too stuck in their own ways to get out of their own way, unfortunately. Seth, please say something more positive than me.
Anything you say is going to be more positive, Seth.
You know, after witnessing what we saw last week, I was so down on this football team for a myriad of different reasons. And the more and more stuff began to come out, I began to fade more and more in the direction that they're one and done in the playoffs. On my show this week, in my podcast, I predicted that the Bucs would win this game 24-17. But as time has gone on, and I heard what the players have said, and it's just a gut feeling. You know, that it just seems like, you know, this is the opportunity for them to step up. And if they don't step up here, then we've got major, major concerns about not only the football team, the leadership on the football team, and the transition of that leadership, because with the guys that you talk about, Bill, that potentially won't be here next year, if they're gone, who are going to be the new leaders that step to the forefront? And those guys need to begin to start taking those steps forward tonight. I believe that player and coaches have been so over-scrutinized, not only by us and the local media, but by the national media. And I just get the sense that the Eagles are going to figure out a way, you know, even if it's just for this 1 week. Even if it's just for this 1 week, I think they find a way to win this football game. Listen, the Bucs average 20 points a game. 20 points a game, okay? And I think it's going to be hard. They're going to be hard-pressed to reach that number tonight. You know, I like the Eagles to win this game 24-20.
24-20.
24-20.
There we go. Look at that simpatico.
Great minds think alike. Farzy, I'm going to be insufferable on you next week after this Eagles win.
I hope you are. And I will just give people this. The last time I predicted the Eagles to lose their first playoff game, they won a Super Bowl. So you could dine on that for a second.
Nice.
Adam, just in case. It's been real on the pregame show with you, my friend.
I'm not leaving you.
We're
not going there.
Don't even reach over here.
Don't you? I'll see you on the
See how he suckered me into that, too?
I'll see you on the postgame show either way. Everyone, thank you so much for watching. Appreciate it. And yes, despite my doom and gloom prediction, as always, go Birds. Take it easy.
Any professional sports coach will tell you there's no substitution for preparation. At Malamut & Associates, that is a tenet by which we live. We prepare from day one for victory. Anything less is not acceptable.
Go for the pulls and the pools. Go for the oohs and the ahs. Go for the bubbles and the bubbly. Go for the story and the stories. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
Football and Hooters, the perfect pair.
They're carving them up and good play calling along the way. First and goal at the 6.
On the field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Any professional sports coach will tell you there's no substitution for preparation. At Malamut & Associates, that is a tenet by which we live. We prepare from day one for victory. Anything less is not acceptable.
EAGLES, Eagles.